Welcome back guys, JC here, and here's my end of the year review for the SPRacing Mini Flight Controller. As always, look in the top right of your screen and description below for links to my other playlist, for other helpful videos, as well as my other reviews. When this flight controller was first released, it sold for $50, and to this day, it still sells for $50. But I guess one good thing is there was a first version which was exactly like this. But this is actually the Mark II or version 2, where they have increased, like I said, they're exactly the same, but they have increased the quality of it by a lot. Because the first version, everything was soldered on crooked. Even my USB was crooked. Well, this is it right here, actually. Just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So this is the first version, this is the second version. Now, they don't look different like this. Let me go ahead and explain. The most notorious feature of this board, and the reason it's got its name of Mini, is it doesn't look too small. In fact, it's actually bigger than your average flight controller. But all these little sections and tabs can break off, and once you break everything off, it gives you a mini flight controller. Now you will lose some functions by doing this. For example, let's go ahead and talk about the race transponder. Whenever you purchase this, it comes with two LEDs, IR LEDs, and a QR code, and you can set this up to be able to use the race transponder. If you go to any serious racing or racing events where they have a timing system, that is what this would be used for. And the good thing about this is it's because it's built into the flight controller, it's small, compact, and it will actually save you money. I know $50 for a flight controller seems expensive, but if you factor in the race transponder, it will actually save you money in the long run, and it will be a much smaller package. But like I said, you can break this off completely if you don't care about the race transponder or LEDs, because you do have LEDs on this same little tab. Now it's either or, you can't use both. Basically, the LEDs are already set up to work, but if you do want the race transponder to work, these two little triangles here, you would have to place a drop of solder on top of them to bridge them together, and that will enable the race transponding system. Now let me back up. I feel like I'm getting too far ahead. This flight controller does have a F3 processor. I know there's flight controllers coming around with F4 processors, but I still think F3 is good enough. It's actually more than enough. I don't think we have even reached the full capabilities and limits of the F3 processors yet, so I don't think we're ready for F4 yet. It does have a built-in voltage regulator rated at 1 amp, and it can accept from a 2 to 4S LiPo battery. If you're not sure how much current you need, just add up all the current draw from all your devices, and as long as they don't go over 1 amp, then you should be fine. Now, what is a little rare about this one is it uses a virtual Comport instead of the CP2102 driver. And a virtual Comport is better because with F3 processors you get 3 UART ports, and this means that you get all 3 UARTs available, where with the CP2102 driver, those boards, UART number 1 is always tied into the USB. So that means if you have a device on UART 1, you have to disconnect it every single time you go into beta flight or clean flight, or you could have problems come up like beta flight or clean flight freezing up. Sometimes your settings don't save. It's a hassle, but you don't have to worry about that with this flight controller. Now the rare part is it has VCP, but it still uses the I2C form of communication instead of SPI, where SPI is better, SPI is faster. Normally when you see a VCP flight controller, it has SPI, so this is one of the rare few I've seen that has a VCP with I2C instead of SPI. It's really not that big of a deal though. Just know that one-shot 125 ESCs with your PID loop frequency at 2 kilohertz, that will be fine. Really, you can use any ESCs you want. One-shot 42, multi-shot, D-shot. Just know that with I2C, you need to tone those down a little bit. For the gyro update frequency, I wouldn't go past 4 kilohertz. So same thing for your ESCs, either 2 or 4 kilohertz, no matter which ones you use. It does have a built-in barometer and magnetometer, which is good if you plan on using this for a GPS build. The barometer is a BMP 280, and it also ties in all the sensors through the MPU 9250. It does not accept PWM receivers. So if you do have a PWM receiver, you will either have to purchase something else or get a different flight controller. So if we look on this side, you will see we've got UART number 1 here with a 5 volt and ground that you could use for a S-bus receiver. You also have a dedicated PPM pin here for a PPM receiver, as well as on this corner you get those 3 little pins for your Spectrum satellite receivers, which is tied into UART number 3. As far as outputs, you get 8 channels for outputs, meaning you can use this for an octocopter. You get channels 1 to 4 here, then 5 and 6 are over here, and 7 and 8 are over here. Now, speaking of these, like I said, it has 3 UARTs, but it also has 1 soft serial port that is tied into the signal wires or signal pins for channels 7 and 8. This means that you can have up to 4 devices connected to this flight controller. Now over time we've seen flight controllers with internal flash memory of 2 megabytes and then 16 megabytes and up to, I'd say, 64 megabytes, but with this you get the built-in SD card slot or card reader for up to 32 gigabytes of black box logging. Another great thing about it is whenever you plug in the USB cable, not only does that power the flight controller, but it will also power your receiver. If you ever want to just go into Betaflight or CleanFlight and create any channels or test out your receiver or anything receiver related, you can easily do that with only the USB cable instead of having to plug in the USB and a LiPo battery, where some flight controllers don't have this capability. You can use this flight controller in Betaflight and CleanFlight, but as well as iNav. If you don't know, iNav is almost exactly like Betaflight and CleanFlight, but it's more GPS oriented. You get more GPS features and options, settings, and they have the firmware for this board. As far as quality goes, like I was talking about in the beginning of this video, the version 1 was just horrible. People were finding it left and right. I do understand that majority of the time it's user error, and this flight controller is very confusing on how you power it. As a matter of fact, if you do have this or plan on purchasing it, watch my video on how to power it, because I go even further into it. Like many people don't know about the 2 triangles right here that you have to bridge together to send the 5 volts throughout the rest of the flight controller. I won't talk about that now, just watch that video, and that way you shouldn't fry anything. But point is, ever since the Mark II, which is this one here, I haven't had any problems with it. I'm sure some people still fry them, but like I said, that's probably user error. But everything is soldered on straight. The manufacturing process obviously got much better because all the resistors and capacitors, everything seems to be, you can just tell it's however they create it, it's much better now. As far as my final thoughts for this flight controller, I would say that just my personal opinion, because it has the I2C form of communication, I'm not crazy about it, at least for freestyle flying and racing, because I would want SPI and the ability to use the full potential of multi-shot or D-shot ESCs. Now, if I were talking about a GPS build, I think this is probably one of your best options out there. The reason for this is because, like I said, iNav supports firmware for it. It has 3 UARTs and 1 soft serial port for 4 total devices, plus it uses the virtual Comport, meaning none of those are shared with the USB, as well as it has the built-in voltage regulator, which is also a nice feature. And then on top of all of that, the built-in barometer and magnetometer. So if you do want a GPS build, I would highly recommend this for that. Now, acrobatic flying and racing, not so much. I think I would go with something else. Unless you are limited on space. That's the other part of it. If you have a very small multi-rotor, but you want the F3 processor and a lot of features, like I said, you can break all these tabs off and create something much smaller. And that's going to do it, guys. So, like I said, check out this playlist and my other reviews, and I will see you there.